Welcome back to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. We are a nonprofit group that helps towns save money on their national flood insurance policy premiums for their residents and second homeowners. We also help to share common sense flooding solutions at the Jersey Shore. Join with me as we have most weeks. Meteorologist Dan Skeldon, Palma Shiles. We said last week she was going to be out with us for the second half of April. She will be back in May. Dan, what's going on? You said your pool was opening up soon in the last episode here, which is I feel like is a bold move in the Lehigh Valley at this point.
It is. It will be open, and we have a full heat pump on it. So
Oh,
if we're willing to have the high electric bill, we can enjoy the pool early in the season. But I think traditionally, we like to have it ready by Memorial Day. So it's open early. Hopefully, it will be nice and crystal clear and ready to go. And after the winter we had, I think everyone's just ready for the beach, the summer, the pool, the vacations, just the warmer weather, and just totally forget about uh, actually two back-to-back tough winters that we've had.
yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this last week too with Jim Everyone. Like it does feel like a lot of people are ready for the heat. But people will probably start complaining once it gets too hot. Be like, remember what happened 6 months ago? Don't you remember that?
Absolutely. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of living in the Northeast is you
Yeah,
enjoy the season for a while and then you get sick of it and you're waiting for the next one.
exactly. When are we doing tidal flooding talk in your pool, Dan?
Anytime. We're gonna have a coastal coalition barbecue and pool party up here this summer.
Maybe Tom Quirk can bring the catering for us.
Absolutely. He's a good cook.
Yes, he is a pizza man. Tom
He
Quirk is
makes a
our
great pizza. Yes.
yes. All right, we're going to keep it in the Northeast for this episode. We're going to welcome on Karen Kavanaugh. She is an oceanographer at NOAA. We're going to talk about high tides, flood mapping, the whole 9 yards. Very relevant for tidal flooding talk. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to start off with this. You said before that you are from New Jersey. Tell everybody where you're from and what part of New Jersey are you from, Karen?
I'm from Ewing, New Jersey, and that's near Trenton. And I consider it central New Jersey, although I have learned since moving from New Jersey, that's apparently a mythical place, but it exists.
It's a mythical place because people are jealous that they're not from Central Jersey, Karen. So you are spot
course.
on. It's hard to be more central than that. I mean, you're right next to Trenton. I mean, that's perfect there. When was the last time you didn't pump your own gas?
Last time I didn't pump my own gas.
Yeah.
I mean, probably Christmas when I was visiting my parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you miss not pumping your own gas?
I mean, honestly, when I first moved from New Jersey, I was terrified because it's like, but now it's fine. I
It's
actually
fine.
have a electric car now, so it's
Not
a
a problem.
plug-in hybrid, so I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
really have to pump my gas a whole lot here either. So
Okay.
Nice.
That's good.
Karen, do you have a favorite Jersey Shore town, either as a child that you kind of grew up with or now as an adult?
yeah, so I have been going to Stone Harbor, New Jersey since I was 4 years old with my family. So that's my favorite vacation place. Every summer we go as a family for a week or two and rent a house down there. And yeah, that's the best.
It
Yeah,
really,
I
I
love
mean,
the Jersey Shore.
yeah, totally. And Stone Harbor's like, my God, top three nicest towns at the Jersey Shore, probably.
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there, probably, I don't know, Spring Lake and maybe probably Avalon right next door, honestly, right next door to Stone Harbor. Karen, last New Jersey question, then we'll get into the real stuff. But are you you like Taylor ham better or pork roll?
Oh, so I'm gonna fail this one because I'm a vegetarian. So
Okay.
I
That's all right. My
know,
mom's a
I know.
vegetarian. That's fine. Okay. All right. What would you call it though? What would you call it if you had it?
So growing up, I heard it referred to as pork roll,
Okay.
but I
See,
know
you're being
I'm
a
like,
little coy on this one. You're not really you're not planting your flag in the ground somewhere. Are we
it's
team
because
pork roll?
it's that central Jersey, so there's like
Yeah.
enough of an overlap. My parents were from North Jersey, a lot of friends from South Jersey and Philly. So
We've
Yeah,
talked about it before. I mean, that pork roll line goes pretty far north. All the
It
way up to
does.
Warren County, which is like, northwestern New Jersey, is pork roll country.
Yeah. Karen, you probably didn't expect these questions when we first emailed you, did you?
no, it's great. I
All
love
right, good,
Jersey.
good. I hope the powers that be at NOAA are okay with this. But we will get into the crux of what we're doing today. We're talking about tidal flooding, high tides, of NOAA tidal flood mapping, etc. So you're an oceanographer with NOAA here, but kind of an interesting life story, right? You started out as an animal behavior major and graduated with a degree in that. So tell us about that journey from, I'll say, animal science to ocean science.
Yeah, so I've always loved biology. And so that was when I went to undergrad, that was what I wanted to do is like major in that. But also I told you I'm like grew up going to the Jersey Shore, so I had a concentration in marine biology classes and oceanography. After college, had internships in the marine biology fields, went to graduate school and did more of a like water quality, freshwater quality master's degree in DC. And it really is just like serendipitous that my first job out of grad school was at NOAA. And it was in the same office that I'm in now. But first, what I was doing was harmful algal bloom operational forecast. So using that biology degree and also GIS mapping skills, but also like learning on the job about physical oceanography, which is what most of what my office does. My office is in National Ocean Service, and they maintain the National Water Level Observing Network, which is all of the tide gauges around the coast, around the country, in the U.S. territories. There's like my biography. It's like I always loved the oceans. I knew it. Like I wanted to do something studying that, and it's like amazing opportunity to just keep on learning new things and learning on the job.
So how long have you been with NOAA? I mean, first job out of grad school, then. So it's your entire career, and I
Yeah.
guess what is the focus of that? Like, what does your daily work consist of now?
So I've been at NOAA for 15 years. And now what I do is very focused around coastal hazards. I am the product lead for the monthly high tide flooding outlook, which predicts seasonal flooding. And I also help out with another product called Coastal Inundation Dashboard, which is all those tide gauges that I talked about, real time observations, and it like flashes and pings when those stations are experiencing flooding or may experience flooding in the near term, but also has some historic flooding information because our tide gauges have been operational, some of them for over 100 years. So we've got a lot of rich data to analyze and visualize and supply to people. So yeah.
Nice.
And we can toot our own horn here in New Jersey, right? Because between Cape May, Atlantic City, and Sandy Hook, they've been around. I think, is Atlantic City around the longest? It's been since like the 1910s in Atlantic City.
Yeah. Sandy Hook and Atlantic City are the oldest. It's like the 1910 and 1911.
Yeah, so we have a really good, historical data set here. You know what we'll do? Let's take our first break. On the other side, you're going to kind of show us a little bit about these tools that you've been talking about. So really cool. So if you're on video, you'll be able to check this out and you can follow along for yourself. And we'll be right back here with Karen on tidal flooding.
Well, welcome back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk, along with meteorologist Joe Martucci. I'm Dan Skeldon, and thanks for joining us this week. We're talking with NOAA's Karen Kavanaugh, who's now sharing her screen. So those of you watching, what Karen's going to do now is kind of take us through a little bit of tools that are available to her and to us in helping predict tidal flooding and watching and monitoring the oceans and tide levels. And Karen, take it away.
Thanks so much. So I right now am viewing the coastal inundation dashboard, which you can get to by going to tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov/inundation DB. And what this tool allows us to do is we see all of our coastal tide gauges and our water level stations in the Great Lakes that NOAA maintains. And you can see some kind of pinging stations right here in the Gulf. There's kind of a red circle. And what that means, if I click on the station, is these are stations that are currently observing water levels that are exceeding the minor flood threshold. And so the whole purpose of this tool is really for people to get a quick view of the conditions that, like, are we experiencing flooding in stations that you're interested in? Are you forecasted to experience flooding in the next 48 hours? And it can be really useful just as a quick snapshot. And then you can actually also go into the full inundation history for more tabs, which I am going to click on a station in New Jersey
All
to
right.
show off. So I'm going to go to the inundation history page and sharing that tab now. And so there you can see the water levels observations, and you can change those dates, look back into different time periods. What I think is really cool in this is that beyond just real-time monitoring, there's also that rich history of the tide gauge. So Atlantic City, we were talking about, it's been operational since 1911. And so I can change these dates and see all the number of times that water level has exceeded the minor flood thresholds at that station, the number of flood days in each year going all the way back. So you can see, this is trending up over time, even from 1980. And that is because of sea level rise, a relative sea level rise at Atlantic City. And you can see that even just in the last decade, we've observed a lot more flood days than we did in 1980, going back into that station's history. And you can also see that there's this seasonal component too, something that, being from New Jersey, like people in coastal towns there already know, probably just anecdotally, that more flood days happen in the fall, maybe winter versus summer. Like scientists can kind of explain that as you've got more storms in the winter that are causing flood days, but also because there's warmer ocean currents and warmer water, it expands. So that causes the water to be that much higher. And so you don't need that much to push you over that flood threshold. Maybe onshore winds or, a little bit of rain contributing to pushing that water level high. And then another thing I work on is compiling these top 10 water levels. And so this is for the whole station record. These are the top water levels, top events that caused water levels to be especially high. And that's useful for people who are planning and putting things into context, especially, if you weren't from Atlantic City, but you have to plan your building, your infrastructure for extreme events, but also just for people to understand, when they move to an area, what's typical, but what are the extremes and what causes those events? Obviously, Sandy was a huge event for New Jersey. That's going to be for Atlantic City, it was the number 2 event. Sandy Hook, I think it's the number 1 event. But understanding this is how high that water level actually reached is really important for planning. Then the other thing I wanted to show is how we're trying to predict high tide flooding.
Sure.
So, do you have any questions for me about coastal inundation dashboard before I switch over?
No, I mean, I mean, I've seen this before. It looks, it's nicely broken down for sure. One thing, if you could talk maybe in 60 seconds, you have MWWH. Now that means mean high or high water, but there's different
Mhm.
kinds of datum for that. So can you explain like quickly what the different types of datum are and what is MWWH? What does that mean?
Yeah, so for this datum, it's MHHW.
Or
It's
MHH.
mean.
No, sorry, I said
Yeah,
MWWH. My fault.
yeah,
Yes,
totally
thank you.
fine. Yeah, so what that stands for is mean higher high water. And I guess a good way of understanding that is that when we're looking at the water levels, we know like you can see all of those high tides. That's the mean high water is like the average of those high tides. Mean higher high water is the average high tide over the tidal epoch. So, like, tidal epoch is about 19 years. It's like the lunar cycle, like, of just the orbit. And so, mean higher high water is basically how we reference it for understanding inundation because it's like what I would say is like the average highest the water level reaches just on the astronomic tides. A lot of weather service products are referenced to mean lower low water, and that's the average. It's the mean lower low water. So
Mhm.
instead of mean high tide, it's the mean low tide over that tidal epoch.
Okay,
And then
cool.
there's mean sea level, which is just reference to the average sea level for that tide gauge.
Got it. Got it. All right. You know what we'll do, Karen, because we're just bumping up the time here. Let's take a break and then we'll take a look at more tools here on the other side here. So we'll be right back after this commercial. But welcome back to Tidal Flooding Talk. And as a reminder, tidal flooding happens year round. It's not just during coastal storms, it's not just during nor'easters. It can happen during full moons and a little bit of an east wind. That's why it's always important to be prepared. Move your cars if your area is flooded, if you're on the barrier islands. Our New Jersey Coastal Coalition flooding dashboard has member towns show where there are safe parking areas for you to go for free in case there are tidal flooding. If you're a member of the New Jersey Coastal Coalition town, you can access that through your town. You can speak to your town representatives for that. If your town's not part of New Jersey Coastal Coalition, join. It's free and you'll have access to that product. So we are back with Karen Kavanaugh. She's going to talk to us about the monthly high tide flooding outlook, and we'll let you fire away, Karen. Go right ahead.
Thanks so much. So I'm have shared the monthly high tide flooding outlook. You can access it from tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov /high tide flooding monthly outlook.html. And what this does is actually pretty relevant to that PSA about moving your car in case there's high tide flooding possible. And also what I was talking about that seasonality to flooding. So what this model does is it takes the astronomic tide predictions that my office produces from those tide gauges and combines that with seasonal, like that seasonal observations of flooding over the last like decades from those tide gauges, building sort of our understanding of there are certain months where there's higher risk for flooding just based on that seasonal changes in water level. And then it also pulls in the most recent monthly anomalies, differences between the observations and predictions, because there are certain times when the ocean currents are higher pushing water levels higher. Basically, what that model then gives us is this daily likelihood of flooding. And what I can do is I can see these pins where we have tide stations. There's some that are a light red, and that's greater than 5% chance of flooding. And then dark red is greater than 50%. And if I click on it, change the to the calendar tab, it'll pull up a calendar where you can see where there's higher risks during the month. You can see for April, we've got possible coastal flooding on the 18th and the 19th, and that's right around the time of the new moon. And the perigee, which is actually when the moon is closest to the earth. So pulling the gravitational pull on the tides that much higher. So it's just a nice tool that you can use. We're planning on updating it and adding locations as well in the future. So I think it's a handy thing for in the toolbox for coastal practitioners to be able to plan ahead for flooding.
Karen, has there been any, I mean, I guess how new is this product, and has there been any like studies as to, accuracy? I know with any computer model, you kind of, you try to look to see how it performs, and this one's a little different, but I just wasn't sure, if you do have any gauge as to how good or bad it's been so far.
Yeah, it's actually, this came out as a product 3 years ago, and it was based on a paper that was published by our chief scientist at the time, and assessed it based on like past data to see would it have predicted the flooding. And it did really well. We only produce it for stations where it's skillful enough that it's better than what our tide predictions are already showing. And now we're also doing research now to improve it and make, like I said, expand it spatially, but also just improve on that that performance of the model. But I will say, this is meant to complement what the Weather Service puts out because it doesn't include the real-time weather. So it's going to miss the onshore winds that cause an event. But the point of it is like it's right now, weather forecasts for flooding, they only go out a few days. So that's not enough time for people to prepare for a flood event in advance for staffing or emergency responders, people that have to get sandbags for their businesses to protect them, that kind of thing. So this has helped to give like an idea well in advance for the high risk times that you might experience flooding. And then obviously consult the Weather Service for the forecast as the event gets closer.
Perfect. Great. Well, Karen, this was fantastic. This is really like when we're thinking tidal flooding talk, these are the kind of things that we want to talk about. So we're really appreciative for you to come on and share this with us here. Tell us where we can find more information about the work that you're doing.
So at tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov, that's my office, the Center for Operational Oceanographic Products and Services in the National Ocean Service.
Awesome. Okay. And if I could just ask you, can you unshare your screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We're going to get to we're going to do the one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise. I guess I will start here. We talked about the meteor last week that struck across the Long Island to New Jersey sky. And I just want to talk about, it was really cool because, with Artemis 2 and NASA and everything, just kind of looking at the photos of the Earth and comparing it to, the dark side or the far side of the moon and the near side of the moon and everything, like, it just makes me think, like, in the year 2300 or something, like, what are people going to think about, like, not just that mission, but that Artemis 3 mission where we're going to go back to the moon and hopefully build a lunar base there, it's probably going to seem like so primitive, but it's like so future sciencey, and there's all these different things. And we see it now with like AI or like the iPod 20 years ago, where I don't know, it just makes you think about the world. So that's what's going on in my head. Dan, what's going on with you? What's something you can't stop thinking about?
I kind of like this. I mean, I'll play off the space thing. I just kind of like the rejuvenation of the excitement in space. It seems to be kind of cyclical, right? Like '60s when we go to the moon, '80s with the space shuttle program. It kind of died off for a little bit, but that excitement is fantastic. I mean, I'm fascinated by it, and just the it seems like no limits as to what we can do, and it's amazing and it's inspiring. So I'll just piggyback off you this week.
All right, cool. And Karen, floor is yours. Tidal flooding or otherwise.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to piggyback on that too.
Sure.
It's just seeing the teamwork of the people that are actually on, like, in space right now, the astronauts working together, but also people that are still on Earth and helping them, like, even just troubleshooting their Outlook email.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's really inspiring. It's science, but it's also just humans and working together. And I have to say, like, just bringing it back to NOAA, it's like how I feel about my colleagues every day. We're not doing stuff in space, but we're doing stuff in the ocean. And I just work with like the smartest, like, just coolest people. And yeah, it's just great to see that.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you as a federal government employee too, you kind of share the same sentiments, like you said with NASA there. So that's great. We really appreciate it. All right, great. Well, Karen, thanks so much. I'm hoping this is
Thank you,
not the
Karen.
last time we have you on. We'll have you in the future. We'll ask some more New Jersey questions for you too. We'll cook up. Those are the easy ones we ask. We'll get some harder ones for you next time we have you.
All
But
right. Yeah.
but thanks so much for being on. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Karen.
Great. So you are listening to this week's episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. New episodes come out every Tuesday night on social media profiles of Dan and myself, as well as the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, and pretty much everywhere where you get your podcasts. So plenty of ways to check us out. We'll talk with you guys next Tuesday. Take care, everybody.